I still remember the way my heart pounded when I stepped into Veronica Adams's office for the first time. I was 25 then, fresh out of grad school, and trembling at the thought of working for one of the biggest event planning agencies in town. Everyone said Veronica was a legend. She had the loudest laugh and the sharpest tongue, the kind of woman who could charm any client, yet scare every intern. On my first day, I wore my best navy blue blazer and tried not to trip in my heels. My mom had told me I had a shy smile, so I practiced a brighter one in the mirror that morning. I was still that awkward kid inside, terrified of making the wrong impression, but I also felt a spark of excitement. This was my dream job, right? Or so I believed. The truth is, I really did love event planning, turning empty rooms into magical spaces, picking color themes and decorations that made people gasp with delight. I saw it as a way to bring beauty into someone's big day, whether it was a wedding or a corporate gala. When Veronica offered me the position, she raised an eyebrow and told me, "We don't usually take people without more real-world experience, but I like your portfolio." That portfolio was basically everything I'd done in college, plus a charity fundraiser I helped organize. I knew it wasn't the greatest, but I'd poured my heart into it. Veronica gave me a thin-lipped smile I couldn't quite decode, then said, "Don't let me down." At first, I was too busy learning new things to notice her behavior. I spent hours studying budgets, floor plans, and vendor lists. I was the new kid, so I fetched coffee and tidied the supply closet without complaint. I remember staying late one evening, slouched over a table with leftover confetti and color swatches. I felt oddly happy, like I'd finally found a place that matched my creativity. For the first few months, Veronica didn't yell at me. She didn't praise me either. It was mostly short, clipped feedback like, "Make it more modern," or "That's too plain." I worked harder every time she frowned. I guess you could call me eager to please. Or, well, shy, just like my mom said. As the weeks rolled by, I noticed a pattern. Veronica was all smiles with the bright, loud folks on our team, especially Lauren, a witty extrovert who could jump into any conversation. But around me, Veronica's smiles turned brittle. She'd call on me last during meetings or interrupt me halfway whenever I tried to speak. Part of me shrugged it off. Maybe I needed to speak up more. Maybe I needed to fake it till I made it. That's what some of my friends said. They told me, if you act confident, you'll become confident. But that's not easy when your boss towers over you, arms crossed, eyes critical. I kept thinking if I did everything perfectly, she would warm up to me. I poured my soul into each project. I came up with a color scheme for a Valentine's Day wedding that the bride loved so much. She cried tears of joy when she saw the sample invitations. Instead of giving me credit, Veronica announced to the team that the bride had liked our design. She never mentioned my name. This happened again and again. I'd design a table centerpiece arrangement or coordinate some elaborate ice sculpture theme, and the client would send a nice email praising me by name. But when I scrolled through Veronica's official announcements on our internal chat, it always read like it was a group effort or her own idea. When I finally got the courage to ask why she never singled me out, she said, "You're too quiet. You need to push more if you want recognition." Something changed the day we hosted a huge corporate fundraiser for a major tech company. Every team member had tasks, but I ended up doing the heavy lifting on the decor side. I even negotiated a discount with our balloon supplier that saved us hundreds. While setting up, I heard Veronica across the hall bragging to the CFO about her negotiation skills. My stomach twisted. It wasn't that I needed applause, but I wanted to be seen. Maybe that was my pride talking. I reminded myself that results mattered, not credit. So I swallowed the sting and kept working, stacking boxes of linens and adjusting the color scheme for the stage. In the end, the event was a success, of course. The client was thrilled. But as the crowd dispersed, Veronica approached me and scolded me about some minor glitch in the lighting. She said, "This is why you need to be bolder, my dear. You're just too shy to command a room." A week later, she called me into her office at exactly 4:55 p.m. I should have known something was off. Veronica rarely stayed past 5:00. The blinds were open, letting in the dying light of day. She was sitting behind her desk with a piece of paper in front of her. I recall feeling a chill. She gave me a thin smile, then said in the calmest voice, "We've decided to move in a direction that values more extroverted energy. We need people who can speak up, close deals, and wow clients on the spot. I'm sorry, but this is your last day." I blinked, mouth open, trying to process her words. My heart hammered in my chest. "But my performance," I managed to say. She cut me off. "You're actually very talented, but clients want that spark, you know? That big confidence. It's just business, nothing personal." And that was it. No warning. No chance to prove otherwise. Fired, simply because I was too shy. I walked out with my little box of desk items, feeling a numb sort of shame. My coworkers stared from their cubicles, some sympathetic, some just nosy. Lauren gave me a pitying look as if to say, "It's not my fault." I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. Tears threatened to fall, but I refused to let them. Outside, I stared up at the glass windows reflecting the late afternoon sun. I had no plan, no backup job. I needed that paycheck. My rent wasn't going to pay itself, and I didn't have family money to fall back on. But the worst part was how small and humiliated I felt. Like all my careful effort and quiet dedication meant absolutely nothing. After that day, I spent a week just lying in bed, waiting for the heartbreak to soften. I couldn't eat. My best friend, Lily, kept calling to check on me. She left me voice messages saying, "Hey, you're amazing. That woman doesn't know what she's missing." But I felt worthless. I'd spent so long trying to impress someone who never wanted me to succeed. Slowly, though, the emptiness changed into anger. She let me go because I wasn't loud enough? She'd told me I was talented, then turned around and tossed me out as if I were used gum. My sadness turned into a simmering rage that wouldn't leave my chest. I can't remember the exact moment I decided to start my own company, but it formed piece by piece out of that anger. At first, it seemed ridiculous. Me, the shy girl, launching a rival firm? But then I thought, why not? I have design skills. I'm good at budgeting. I know so many vendors. The real question was, could I handle the spotlight? The idea terrified me, but I couldn't go back to hiding in the shadows, waiting for permission to speak. I realized that if I wanted to survive in this cutthroat field, I had to do something bold, something that even Veronica would never see coming. I began small. My kitchen table became my office, with a laptop that barely ran Photoshop. I visited my old vendors under the guise of catching up. Everyone was polite, though a few looked worried I might be stepping on Veronica's toes. She had a reputation for blacklisting vendors who didn't show loyalty. But I shared my plans gently, promising better deals, faster payment, and creative freedom. Some were intrigued enough to say, "Give me a call when you have your first contract." That first contract was the hardest. I applied for a local art fair planning job. The pay wasn't great, but it was a start. I pitched myself with a bright, polished proposal, using all the little tips I'd learned from Veronica. To my surprise, I landed the gig. The organizers liked my calm and thoughtful approach. I worked day and night on that art fair. I printed flyers, hammered nails into boards for displays, oversaw the volunteer schedule, and even arranged for a small local band to play each evening. My body ached from lugging boxes, but I loved bringing that space to life. When the fair ended, one of the painters told me, "You made this so easy for us. Usually, Event planners boss us around, but you actually listened. Another vendor joked, "It's nice to have a calm presence instead of a loud bark." That's when it clicked. My quiet nature didn't have to be a weakness. It could be my greatest strength because I was approachable and patient. People felt heard when they talked to me. With photos and testimonials from the art fair, I updated my makeshift website. I named my business Moonlight Events, wanting something that hinted at subtle beauty. The next few months, I scrounged for any job I could get. Baby showers, sweet 16s, retirement parties. At times, it was demoralizing because the pay was low, and sometimes I had to chase down payments. But I kept at it, building a portfolio of successful gatherings. Slowly, my phone started ringing more often. Then came the big break. I found out that a prestigious local gallery, Rosewood, was hosting its 10th anniversary gala. They needed a new event coordinator after a scheduling clash with their usual planner. The rumor was that Veronica's firm had tried to jump in but demanded a huge fee. Rosewood was looking for someone fresh who wouldn't break their budget. It was the perfect opportunity. I spent 3 days crafting the perfect pitch. I included references, pictures, detailed budget breakdowns, and then I waited, biting my nails, until the Rosewood manager called back and said, "We'd love to give you a shot." I will never forget stepping into that grand, airy gallery, the floors gleaming, the white walls lined with exquisite artwork. The manager, a stately woman named Celeste, greeted me with a warm handshake. "We've heard good things," she said. I glanced around, imagining how I'd transform the space, picturing floral arrangements, crisp lighting, a sophisticated color scheme that would complement the paintings. I felt alive with possibilities. Celeste's one concern was, "We want a refined touch, but also a bit of fun. Can you do that?" I assured her I could, and she smiled. "Great," she said. "We're counting on you." I threw myself into planning every detail, from the smallest table accents to the background music. The more I worked, the more I realized I didn't miss Veronica's giant personality overshadowing me. I didn't miss the tension of not being heard. Each day, I got more confident in my own choices. Instead of second-guessing myself, I found solutions that felt right. And guess what? It turned out I was pretty good at dealing with clients, even if I did it in a quieter way. I built relationships based on respect and honest communication. Vendors liked working with me because I didn't bark orders. I asked politely yet firmly, and if something went wrong, I stayed calm and fixed it. The gala night arrived. I paced the gallery, making sure the champagne glasses sparkled and the live jazz ensemble was comfortable in their corner. The art on the walls practically glowed under the perfect lighting I had arranged. Around 6 o'clock, guests in formal attire began drifting in, exclaiming how beautiful everything looked. Celeste gave me a thumbs up, her eyes shining with excitement. I couldn't help but remember the day I was fired. Veronica's icy voice telling me I wasn't good enough. Now, here I was orchestrating a classy event that was going off without a hitch. As the night wore on, Celeste introduced me to a bunch of high-profile attendees. Turns out, many of them were in need of event planners for upcoming galas, charity balls, or product launches. Business cards traded hands. I did my best to appear poised and friendly, my heart thumping with excitement. One of them whispered, "I usually use Veronica Adams, but she's overpriced." "This is quite impressive," another chimed in. "Her staff can be pushy. You seem so much more agreeable." My chest swelled with a mix of satisfaction and righteous anger. It was happening. I was winning over Veronica's client base, not by brute force, but by offering genuine kindness and dependable service. By midnight, the gala was declared a raging success. Celeste was overjoyed. And me, I drove home with a satisfied smile stretching across my face. It felt like I'd won a secret battle. Over the following weeks, I got calls from at least 4 new clients who previously worked with Veronica. They asked if I had the capacity to handle their events. Suddenly, I had more business than I'd ever dreamed. I had to bring on 2 assistants and upgrade from my kitchen table to a small shared office space downtown. Every step was a thrill. I'd never been an adventurous person, but building my own company taught me that I could handle challenges. In a way, I discovered a side of myself that was braver than I thought. Then came the biggest twist of all. The city's Chamber of Commerce decided to host a massive trade expo in the main convention center, and the budget was rumored to be huge. All the top event planners submitted proposals, including me, obviously, and of course, Veronica. That old fear sprang up inside me, the memory of her condescending eyes. But I also felt a fiery determination. I wanted this contract, not just for money, but to show Veronica that being quiet didn't mean being weak. So I prepared an ambitious plan, multiple themed sections, interactive booths, and a brilliant marketing strategy that used social media. I spent countless hours perfecting each page of my proposal, making sure it was easy to read but packed with creative ideas. The day of the final pitch, I arrived at the Chamber's sleek high-rise with a case of presentation boards and a calm expression I'd practiced in the mirror. Inside the meeting room, I caught sight of Veronica. She was all sharp angles and a confident grin, wearing a crimson power suit. My stomach fluttered. For a split second, I wanted to hide. Then I remembered how hard I'd worked, the success I'd already had, and the praise from my new clients. I walked to my designated seat without looking at her. But I felt her gaze, a flicker of recognition passing over her face. She wasn't used to seeing me in such a formal setting, looking every bit the professional. When it was my turn, I stood before a panel of city officials and introduced myself as the owner of Moonlight Events. I laid out my vision for the Trade Expo, how it would welcome local businesses, generate buzz on social media, and provide a delightful experience for visitors. I spoke calmly, with a steady voice, making eye contact. I remembered my friend Lily saying, "Just speak from your heart." So that's what I did. I didn't try to be flashy or hyper-energetic. I just explained how I'd make it all happen, step by step, and how important it was to treat exhibitors and guests with care. After I finished, I noticed Veronica watching me with a stony look, arms folded. A swirl of emotions passed through anger, fear, pride, and a strange kind of triumph. Because no matter what happened next, I had faced her without flinching. My last thought before leaving that building was, I can do this. I can beat her. About a week later, my phone rang at 7:00 p.m. I nearly fumbled it in my haste to pick up. It was the Chamber's main contact telling me, "We loved your approach, simple, people, friendly, and tech-savvy. The expo is yours if you'd like it." For a moment, I sat there in shock. I'd beaten Veronica. I'd won the biggest contract in town. I squealed, my voice echoing in my tiny office. The next morning, I found out Veronica was furious. She'd made snide remarks to mutual contacts, complaining that I'd stolen the contract by undercutting her, but in reality, my bid was fair. I just didn't inflate my prices the way she did. The contract was so major that I finally had enough money to lease a bigger space, a 2-story office with glass windows and a modern lobby. We had new employees too, a couple of designers and a logistics expert. I felt a rush of pride whenever I saw our new sign, Moonlight Events, displayed out front in bold letters. Some might think that was revenge enough, but I'll admit, I wanted to do something more. Something that would show Veronica I was no longer the timid girl she fired. Maybe it was petty, but part of me needed that final victory, that last proof of my worth. A golden opportunity arose when the Expo's promotional campaign suggested we rent billboard space around the city. The city official who hired me said, "The marketing budget is high. We can do large ads, bus wraps, social media videos, you name it. My mind went wild. I remembered that Veronica's office was on a busy street near the highway. There was a huge billboard right next to her building, visible from her windows. It was pricey, for sure, but I had the budget now, and the city was fully backing me. So I arranged it. I paid for a month-long billboard that would show the Chamber Expo details, the city's official logo, and most importantly, Moonlight Events as the official event planner. The design was sleek and professional, but the message was unmistakable. My company was leading the biggest show of the season. The day they raised that billboard, I drove by, my heart pounding. There it was, towering in full color. Anyone who stepped out of Veronica's building or looked out her office window would see my company name in 10-foot letters. About a week later, I got word from a mutual acquaintance that Veronica was livid. She'd called an emergency staff meeting to brainstorm ways to compete, but the expo was sealed. My contract was locked in. She couldn't do anything about it. And every morning, her entire staff would see that billboard overhead, reminding them who took the biggest fish in the pond. The final sweetest moment came when I learned Veronica tried to snag a competing event scheduled at the same time. The event organizer basically said, "We're going with another planner who's more in tune with our budget." That planner was one of my new hires, someone I'd personally trained. Not long after, I bumped into Veronica at a cafe downtown. I had just finished a meeting with Celeste from the gallery, who was planning another big show soon. Veronica was sitting at a corner table, flipping through some paperwork. When she saw me, her face pinched. I remember the last time we'd locked eyes back in the day she fired me. This time, I was the one wearing the confident smile. She nodded, trying to act composed, but I saw her eyes flick with annoyance. I stepped over, all polite. "Hi, Ms. Adams," I said calmly. She gave me a stiff smile. "Hello," she replied, her voice cold. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "You put that billboard on purpose, didn't you?" I shrugged, my cheeks getting hot, but my smile never wavered. "It's just good marketing," I said, echoing the phrase she used to say to me whenever she took credit for my work. Nothing personal. Then I turned and left, my heart pounding with adrenaline. The look on her face was priceless, a mix of frustration and grudging respect. I heard rumors that some of her best clients were switching to smaller, more flexible firms because they were tired of her brash ways. Meanwhile, Moonlight Events kept growing. By the time the expo finally opened, we had established ourselves as a real player in the city's events scene. It was a spectacular show with thousands of visitors each day. Our staff was all over the convention center, managing booth layouts, assisting vendors, handling last-minute snags with a calm efficiency I was proud of. On the second day, Celeste introduced me to a major investor looking to fund a chain of new art venues. I felt a thrill just imagining the future projects we might handle. On the final evening of the expo, the city held a small wrap-up ceremony to thank sponsors and participants. I stood on stage in a modest but elegant black dress, accepting a plaque for Outstanding Event Coordination. In the crowd, I noticed Veronica's new assistant, a young girl who couldn't have been older than 21, watching me with wide eyes. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, remembering how I had once been in her position. I wanted to tell her, "Believe in yourself. Don't let anyone bully you into thinking your personality is wrong." But of course, there was no time for that. She dashed off as soon as the ceremony ended, probably worried about Veronica's reaction. I left that night, plaque in hand, feeling an overwhelming sense of completion. I thought about the day I was fired, how heartbroken and small I felt. Now, I saw how that moment of heartbreak turned into my greatest spark, fueling me to start my own path. If Veronica had never belittled me or brushed me aside, I might have stayed as her shy employee forever. But her cruelty pushed me to discover my own strength. And ironically, She ended up creating her own biggest competitor. That's the bold surprise I don't think she ever saw coming. Some might say my revenge was passive. I didn't sabotage her events or spread nasty rumors. I just did my best, took the jobs that came my way, and showed people a different approach to planning. At the end of the day, I'm not a loud person. My style will never match Veronica's flashy confidence. But guess what? I learned that quiet resolve can be just as powerful sometimes, even more so. As for that giant billboard overshadowing her office, well, it's just business, nothing personal. Still, I can't deny how good it felt to see our logo high above the city skyline, shining bright, reminding everyone that people like me can rise up despite the odds. We can climb from the bottom, from the heartbreak of losing a job, to the thrill of leading a successful business. I'm proud of who I've become. Not a timid shadow, but a calm and determined leader. And if Veronica ever tries to cross me again, I'll do the same thing I did before. Stand tall on my own terms. Because I've learned the best revenge isn't always fiery words or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's quietly, confidently proving the doubters wrong until one day they look up and realize you've soared way above them.